This is the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast with your host, Kevin Murray.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. As you may know, I love to share fantasy football resources. And on that note, on this episode, I want to help spread the word about In-Between Media. This brand has taken off, and for good reason. The founder and editor-in-chief, Seth Woolcock, has truly created something special at IBT. He's assembled an incredible team of content creators that are dedicated to IBT's mission to combine feel-good lifestyle advice with fantasy sports and sports betting analysis that helps people win championships and cash and enjoy the in-between on their journeys from A to B in life. IBT's vision is to inspire a more optimistic and accepting culture that gets the most out of both life and fantasy sports. This vision is come to life with their incredible content. IBT focuses on fantasy football, NASCAR, PGA DFS, sports betting. They have a YouTube channel with outstanding video content and live streams. IBT has a podcast. They provide entertainment and lifestyle articles, and they have a newsletter as well. On this episode of the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast, I sit down with IBT's innovative leader, Seth Woolcock. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you enjoy every ounce of it. Now, there were some technical glitches with some of the audio and video, but don't let that get in the way of you finding some inspiration from Seth and discovering the incredible resources that can be found at in-betweenmedia.com. Let's dive in. Thrilled to have you here, Seth.
Kevin, absolute pleasure being here with you, man. Huge fan of the podcast. One of the very few that my phone memory actually can store, and I'm subscribed to. So I appreciate being here, man. Big fan of the show.
Well, hey, it's always a pleasure to connect with you. We've shared some good times together, and looking forward to more in the future. But definitely happy to have you here. Let's dive into some IBT. Want to learn more about what you guys are doing over there. But first, with you, when did you first discover your love for sports? What was it like as a kid? Football, sports, all that kind of stuff.
Man, it was early, like 2004, Big Ben's first year in Pittsburgh. I was lucky enough. I got to see a second start ever at Heinz Field. And man, it's really ever been since then, kind of just been captivated by everything that is the National Football League, man. I mean, it really is the greatest league on earth between the NFL draft and preseason, all the way through it. And of course, the Super Bowl at the end, man. It's always been a part of my life. There's some other sports that have been really impactful in my life as well. But I tend to think that the sports world is a much friendlier place sometimes than, the politics world that you have to get into. So I love staying in that lane, and also love connecting it back to real life as well.
Well, hey, those Steelers, they broke my heart back in, was it 2005, I believe, when Big Ben those refs. It was the refs. As long as you're happy with it, it's fine with me. I've moved on. Well, kind of. So when did you first discover fantasy football?
Yeah, so that was 2010. My brother, he had been playing with some friends, and we got in a random league with a bunch of people on ESPN. And that was Michael Vick's first year with the Eagles that he took off. I guess it was maybe second year with the Eagles, but first year as a starter. But super cool to kind of get into it at that time. And that was such a different time than it is now, with all the superstars being running backs, quarterbacks, and the game has evolved so much since then.
Do you have like a favorite home league that you have, a long-standing league that you have? Any favorite memories from the fantasy home league experience for you?
Yeah, man. So we have this league called the KEG, Kane's Extraordinary Gentlemen. Kane is our small town that we're from. And it was basically a combination of my brother's league with his friends who were a couple years older than me and my friends. And we combined that back in 2016. And those first 2 years, a lot of us were in college together. And there were some extraordinary fights in this league. I call them the veto wars of 2016 and 2017. Like, friendships were almost lost. Names were called. It was so much fun looking back at it. Like, we just didn't know how to use a veto properly as a league, and it just tore people apart. But it was all in good fun, man. And that league continues to be what drives me every single year. Still have not won it to this day.
So the league survived. That's a big thing, obviously a league
Yeah.
that can kind of get through some battles like that, obviously and come out on the other end stronger, is impressive because not they don't always survive.
Yeah, and I think it's like at the end of the day, we all realize like, hey, we're doing this because we care about each other and like we're trying to stay connected and have fun. Um, but yeah, I think every league kind of needs to go through that in a way. I think it kind of makes you stronger a little bit because everyone remembers like, holy shit, that was nuts a couple years ago, and now it's like tame compared to what it was.
That's great, that's great. So when did you first start creating fantasy football content?
Yeah, so that was in 2018. I was the editor in chief of the student newspaper at IUP, the Pen, and we kind of just needed content, man. We had a sports section. D2 sports only goes so deep. So I'd always loved Matthew Berry's content, man. Like his book, his column, like really got me through some tough times in life and really inspired me. So I decided I wanted to start a column, and at that point, we were also experimenting with podcasting at the Pen. We had gone from a print publication to an all digital media company. So invested in some podcast equipment from them. And then those guys in that league that I was telling you about that, was tore us apart in 2016, 2017, 2018, we started a podcast together called Bottom Line Fantasy. Came out under the newspaper's brand and everything still. But that was kind of the first taste of it there was in 2018.
That's awesome. So tell me about the history of IBT, where it came from, what inspired it.
Yeah, man. So it was after that 2018 year, it was the summer of 19, and I was just about to graduate from college. I had one semester left, and I was kind of just in this really in between place. I feel like a lot of times, highly motivated people, they're always trying to get from A to B, which is great. It's great to be driven, it's great to be motivated in life. But sometimes you can miss out on things because you're too busy trying to get there. So it's always about, remembering to enjoy the in between and enjoy those good moments of life. And I feel like fantasy football is kind of that same way. We all want to win a championship at the end of the day. We all want to go from drafting our team to holding that trophy at the end of the year. However, we got to remember to enjoy week one, week two, and enjoy the entire process and what comes with it too. So that was kind of the idea for In Between Media. Graduated college that year. I started doing the podcast and everything, still under the Pen, but kind of under this IBT brand subdivision, if you would. And then graduated, and I was working for a Dynasty Football Factory at that time. Kind of found my into the industry a little bit, and eventually was like, oh, they were great people. They are such motivated group over there, and I'm really thankful to kind of have got in with them, and really kind of opened me up. I didn't realize there was this whole Twitter community for fantasy football and all the goodness that comes with it. So then right after that, it was right about the pandemic time. I got furloughed from my first full-time job. Finally, Kevin, for the first time in like years, I had some time on my hands. I was like, what am I going to do with this time? And a couple days later, I filed for the name license, a business bank account, and kind of just got to work on it. Made a website, made a YouTube channel, a podcast, and kind of built it all by scratch. But met some really good people along the way that really helped with it and got us where we are today.
Well, it's grown so much, and obviously there's so many you have so many great contributors. Talk to me about the lineup you have, like the content that's coming out. What's IBT doing these days?
Yeah, so IBT, we pretty much focus on fantasy football and NFL betting, NASCAR betting, and in the PGA world as well a little bit. So we kind of focus on those sports and also some lifestyle content. So you can always expect some general lifestyle and entertainment content coming out at our site. And then right now we have about 8 or 9 pieces a week of written content coming out. And then 2 live streams a week. And man, Kevin, these people put in their time. Like we have some great contributors over there, people who are really like family to me. Scott Rainier, he's my podcast co-host. He's excellent at what he does. I know you know Scott as well. He's a Seattle guy.
Yeah,
He
no, we just shared a fun trip together out to the Fantasy Football Expo. So we'll get to that in a moment. But yeah, incredible people. You got Sven, right? You got Sven doing some work in the kitchen.
Yeah. We have Cooking with Sven. That's our cooking show over on the YouTube. Sven does an awesome job. We got Hoove, who's a dynamic guy in this industry. He's in the back end doing a lot of things. And one of the most proud things that I have at IBT is a group of people that I've actually worked with back from that original newspaper. Our audio producer, Kyle Scott, he's my right-hand man. He does a lot of the back end work for the live streams and the podcast. I've known him for 6 or 7 years. My girlfriend Katie's our managing editor on the website end, and Elliot Hicks, he's our main NASCAR guy, and I've known him since college as well. So we have so many great characters here, man, and like I think everyone who is a player at IBT really just fits the brand. They're not afraid to be themselves. You know, we might drop some cuss words. We might have a few alcoholic beverages in the evening hours, but we do it with fun and just being ourselves, man.
Yeah, no, it's an incredible team. And again, with Sven, I mean, I first met him in Texas at
Yeah.
SportsCon. So we go back several years. The Fantasy Football Expo has been a great way to connect. Obviously, it's where I met you. Let's talk about the expo. What has the expo meant to you? The IBT brand.
Dude, it has been a game changer. It is a game changer and a field leveler for someone I feel like my age, someone with my resources, I guess. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to break into this industry, whether you have an education and a background in it or not. And the Fantasy Football Expo just brings so many smart people together. So many powerful conversations happen there. And it's been so great to, especially coming out of COVID, man. I had worked with people for years at this point and had never met them in person. And dude, like all the goodness that happens after hours as well. Like that's where I first met you in a smoky little downtown bar named George's. Met you and Sven both there, and it's like those memories. Like I'll never forget them. You know.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. And let's talk about Draft Night Out. Tell me about that enterprise that you've taken on. What that experience was like this year, and where it's going in the future.
Yeah, man. So Draft Night Out is our live draft party event, and very thankful to have met a group of great gentlemen, John Chapman and Dale DeMont, a couple years ago, and they were running this event. And it always had been about bringing people together to do what we love to do, play fantasy football. And Draft Night Out was always that. And Dale had another kid recently, and family is continuing to grow and just couldn't put the time and the investment in that comes with running an event like this. And so IBT ended up taking it under our umbrella. And man, it was a lot of work coming into this first year, Kevin. A lot of planning in a little time, a lot to do. But we brought about 140 plus draftees together, dozens of other people coming in, enjoying the atmosphere, the music, the food, just the good vibes of Draft Night Out, man. We had giveaways, and to have an event like that and have so many people happy just together, man, it's almost overwhelming, and I can't explain it fully.
Yeah, no, it's special. The whole thing is special. So again, we're talking about the Fantasy Football Expo. It takes place in August each summer, put on by Bob Lung. It's an incredible event.
Yes.
Now it's turned to 3 days. Now it's kind of like 4 days. People are arriving on Thursdays, but every day there's something special. Obviously, the expo, it's a great place for people to come, whether it's content creators or fans of the game of fantasy football. So many different experts and analysts there. It's incredible. Again, those after hours are definitely the best, right? You talking about karaoke and all that. I mean, it's just so many great memories. I remember, it's one of my favorite things this last time was just hanging out with you guys and talking Taylor Swift. I mean, it was good. It was fun. Those are the kind of things we'll remember years from now, and I've enjoyed every second of it the last few years, and looking forward to next year already.
We're very lucky, man. We're a very lucky community that Bob Lung and his entire family come together to put that on. And so many other companies now are getting involved. There are so many other events like Draft Night Out and all the other things that you can do throughout the weekend. And like you said, man, just having those conversations with people. And a lot of times it's not even about fantasy football. that's like the coolest thing. And it's just a humanizing event, especially in a world where we're constantly competing against each other.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's great. It's great. Hey, let's dive into some rapid fire questions. I'll reel off a question. You just let me know what comes
Yeah.
to mind. All right. So, would you rather attend a Penn State bowl game or a Taylor Swift Eras Tour concert?
I can always go to another Penn State bowl game. Sign me up for the Taylor Swift concert for sure. That is life-changing event right there.
Right on, right on. I love it. What's your favorite or most unforgettable last place punishment that you've ever seen or done? But more likely, you've probably seen something you've seen.
Yeah, so there was one that I heard back in the day from another group of friends on campus that you had to streak through campus if you lost. And we talked about it. We debated the role back and forth, and we basically came to the conclusion in our league, we want to do a last place punishment that no one gets arrested for. So ours is to buy a keg now. The league is called the keg. If you lose, you buy a keg. So, however, that has turned to more cases of beer and just in coolers as we've aged. Because drinking a keg with 12 people in an evening is quite the experience, Kevin.
That's good. That's good. What makes a great live fantasy football draft in your opinion?
The vibes have to be immaculate. However, you can get that, like, know your audience. I like a little bit of music. That is debatable. People, not everyone likes music going on. But food, drinks, and just a big draft board, man. Like do it the right way. For so long I had to fight with people about, like, do we just do it online and all come together still, or have the draft board? But when you get the draft board, it is just amazing, dude. Like, to see it all, it makes it feel so much more legit.
Well, and that's part of the cool thing about draft night out is just to see a sea of people all doing their thing. 10 was it? I don't know, was it 10 or 12 man leagues or these days at draft night out? But whatever it is, I mean, it's just so fun, right? You get all these draft boards, everyone doing it that way. I love that draft night out experience, and I look forward to doing it next year for sure. What's been the most difficult challenge thus far that you've experienced in the industry with IBT?
I would say finding that balance, man. Finding that balance is always a really hard thing. When I first started doing this, I was also working in higher education media full time. That has since shifted, working in the space mostly full time now. But always finding that balance, how much do I keep pushing when I also need to be out there playing fantasy football? I need to be strategizing in my own teams when I also need to be spending time with my family and my friends. Like, finding that balance, I think, has been one of the most difficult things. But I feel like over the years, like, I finally have gotten as close as I can with it. Still, my life gets to revolve around it, which I'm lucky. I am very lucky that I can think about it all the time. But still, having those times where I can step away from it, that is always the hardest thing.
Good answer. Whose content did you consume most prior to starting your career in fantasy?
Definitely ESPN, man. The 06010, Matthew Berry, Field Yates, Stefania, and the gang. They were always awesome. The footballers, that was probably, like, before I got into it. Those were the big hooks for me.
I love it. Name a person in the industry that you would love to watch a game just to see or watch a game with, just to get their insight and perspective on it.
100% hands down. Another state scholar from Pennsylvania, Mike Clay. I am very much an analytics guy. Mike Clay is very much an analytics guy, but I want to see how he wraps his brain around the game as it's happening and kind of formulates it back into the analytics from the eye test. So I think Mike Clay, dude's got a huge brain, and I just kind of want to see it in action.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer too. That'd be fun to go to a NASCAR event with Mike Clay.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I know he's a little bit of an eye racer. So hopefully one day I'm thinking about getting a rig myself, and hopefully I find Mike Clay out there on the streets.
I love it. Name three people that had a massive impact on you during your journey in the industry.
Yeah, got to shout out the GOAT, TMR, Matthew Berry. What he's been able to do and just bring fantasy football to the masses cannot be understated. He continues to push and push and push the boundaries more for the fantasy football industry. and such a humble human being, interacts with everyone. And what he was able to do and his style of writing is really what brought there would be no like let's be straight, there would be no in between media if there wasn't a Matthew Berry. So big thank you to him for everything he's done. Scott Fish has been a really great friend and a great resource for me. Getting into draft night out, he's someone who has experience running a lot of leagues. He's given me some great advice with that. And even a couple years ago when I was just getting into the space, had just launched In Between Media, um, got into my first Scott Fishbowl 10 at that point. And Scott sent a really nice message to me and about a column I had written about the Scott Fishbowl. So really appreciate Scott and his expertise and his friendship. And then the guys over at Front Yard Fantasy, I know I'm cheating a little bit, but what those guys have been able to do, just making their own thing and finding their lane. And they've always shared advice with me, but I think more than anything, they showed me about being who you are on camera and just being that person 100% of the time. So really appreciate them as well.
Yeah, great people all the way up and down that list for sure. Now, do you have any advice for people that are aspiring to get more involved in the fantasy space?
I would say just be you. Everyone's like, everyone is out here. We're all competing for clicks. We're all competing for subscribers. Um, but it's a lot easier when you're yourself, when you're not anyone else other than you. That's, I think, when you're going to have the most success. And it's also when it's going to be the most fun. We don't need 100 other shows out here that are buttoned up people. We need 100 other shows that are of good human beings and are of real people. Like that's what I love. I love real people in this space. So just be you and love it too. I think just love it, man. Like you can really tell pretty quickly out here who loves it and who doesn't. And you can get burned out really quick if you don't love it. So just love it and be yourself.
Great advice. Absolutely great advice. Now, what are your thoughts and impressions on what's going on so far in 2023? Are there big, huge surprises for you? What are your thoughts as we've got 3 weeks down already?
Man, I was devastated Monday night, football opening week. The Frisky Jets lost old Aaron Rodgers. I uh,
Ugh.
I've become a Jets fan the last couple of years. I just love what they're building over there, and to see them lose Aaron Rodgers after everything he put in this offseason, it was devastating. It was devastating my fantasy teams. A lot of Garrett Wilson, a lot of Brees Hall going on for the second year in a row. So that was probably the most surprising, and just to see. There's always injuries, right, Kevin? But I feel like the last 2 or 3 years, it has been off the charts these first couple weeks, what we're seeing. And so I think that's kind of been the most shocking, just the Jets and just the injuries piling up yet once again. And it shouldn't be.
Yeah, no, it's been crazy. Obviously before the show, we talked a little bit about some of our agony thus far in our home leagues and whatnot. It's been crazy. Obviously, you know, what just happened with Miami the other day. I mean, 70
70
points,
points.
right?
Yeah, it
Incredible.
is.
I mean, the production from A Chain and Mostert. I mean, it was just insane.
We're looking at one of those seasons, man, that is going to be historical looking back. Like almost reminds me of the COVID season, some of the anomalies we're seeing right now on both sides of the ball.
Oh, for sure. What can we expect from IBT the rest of this season and in the years ahead?
Yeah, absolutely, man. You guys can expect consistency. We're gonna be there. We release our content on a schedule. It's gonna be there when it's scheduled to be out. You can expect consistency, and you can expect just real human beings talking fantasy sports, talking betting, and just trying to live life to the fullest, man. We got so much coming out for everyone, and just want to say that I really appreciate everyone's support in this industry, man. It has been incredible. The audience we found, the IBT family, it continues to get stronger and stronger all the time. So just good vibes coming from us over here at IBT.
That's awesome, Seth. Now, it's been a pleasure having you on here. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we close things out?
None other than Kevin. You're a rock star, man. Keep doing your thing. Love what you're doing with Fantasy Football Unlimited, kind of taking it to this unlimited version, if you would, really upping everything here and upping the content. So really appreciate it, man. And like every time we get to interact, whether it's in person, remotely here as it is today, I really, really enjoy it, dude. And you'll always be the commissioner to me, buddy.
Hey man, you're my favorite. So anytime we get to spend some time together, it's an absolute pleasure. Where can the viewers and listeners find you, my friend?
Yeah, inbetweenmedia.com. That's the easiest way to support us. We're also on YouTube at IBT_media. For myself, you can find me on Twitter at between_SethFF.
There you go. There you go. Thanks again for joining me, Seth. Looking forward to everything you have ahead of you.
Thank you. You too, Kevin.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. Until next time, be sure to follow and subscribe to all of FFU's social media accounts for daily content.